Projekt Guru.
Всем привет! С вами Zak Novak на радиостанции Novorossia Rocks. Welcome to Novorossia Rocks Radio Station. This is Zak Novak, your American in downtown Donetsk. You're listening to Projekt Guru. Guru's in the house as always. Guru, thank you so much for all the hard work you do. Andre, my engineer, thank you so much for everything. Let's get down to it. Crisis news from Donetsk and Lugansk. 11-year-old child wounded, 27 homes destroyed. More war crimes, bombing civilian areas, homes destroyed. Yet again, the Ukraine junta regime, with its savagery, bloodthirsty murder, deliberately targeting civilian areas of Donetsk and our sister republic Lugansk, including the wounding of 11-year-old child. Here we go. 2 residential houses were destroyed in last night's shelling of the western outskirts of Donetsk. Local administration head Maxim Zhukovsky said 2 residential homes were completely destroyed last night near the Trudovskaya coal mining district. Fortunately, no one was injured as people managed to go down to the basement in time. Donetsk People's Republic Defense Minister said earlier that Nazi Ukrainian forces shelled the settlement of Zapichevo and Donetsk airport on Monday. Donetsk and Lugansk Republic said that Ukrainian forces violated the ceasefire regime 120 times and shelled DPR and LPR territory more than 320 times since December 23rd. Also just in, Nazi Kiev forces again shelled the village of Staromikhailovka in the western outskirts of Donetsk area, Volvo Center in the former airport. Ukrainian junta soldiers again opened fire in the village of Staromikhailovka about 1830, that's 6:30, right Guru? At about the same time, under fire bombing on the airport and Volvo Center, the enemy fire coming from occupied positions, Marinka. During the shelling, the Ukrainian junta side fired on positions of DPR, that's the Donetsk People's Republic, 23 times using 82 caliber mortars and 16 minutes of barrage fire with 120. Also, a child received a concussion resulting in last night's shelling by the Nazi Ukrainian forces on a village north of Zaitsevo, Gorlovka area. Last night's shelling of the residential area, the child was hit by a projectile, received a concussion. He received first aid on the spot. The child is now at home, thank goodness. According to local authorities, last night was one of the most hottest bombings since the holidays, the targeting of civilian areas. The attacks were very intense. We have become accustomed to mortar bombs, but today something has fallen even heavier than the 120 calibers. This was very intense and deliberately targeting civilian areas. Also in, Nazi Ukrainian forces began shelling another civilian area, the village of Lazovo. Ukrainian junta forces started shelling the village Lazovo about 6 o'clock. According to a source from enemy positions, Nazi forces unleashed 15 minutes of 120 millimeter caliber. In addition, Ukrainian junta using rocket-propelled grenade launchers and small arms fire. As we have informed earlier, as a result of night shelling, the savagery by the Nazi Ukrainian forces struck the village in the northern suburbs of Zaitsevo, Gorlovka area. Over 27 private homes were destroyed. Ukraine junta regime plans to close border checkpoints once again as they set up booby traps and minefields. Guru, listen to this. Nazi Ukrainian forces plan to close Marinka border checkpoint starting from February 17th. The headquarters of the junta military operation in Donbass wrote on its Facebook. Ukraine junta's National Security and Defense Council already closed Marinka checkpoint on February 13th, saying it was necessary to ensure safety of local residents. However, cars were allowed to pass the checkpoint to and from Donetsk People's Republic. The Kiev Nazi regime previously closed border checkpoints in Zaitsevo and Mayorsk. DPR Defense Ministry spokesman Edward Basudin said earlier that Ukraine junta authorities engage in open terror against Donbass residents by closing border checkpoints and mining the roads, setting up deadly booby traps. Ukrainian junta commanders have in fact engaged in standards of open terror against Donbass residents and full blockade of DPR and LPR. Nazi Kiev does not only close border checkpoints, but also mines and sets up booby traps onto and near busy roads and pedestrian lanes used only by peaceful citizens. Sister Republic Lugansk under attack, massive shelling of civilian areas by the Ukraine junta. Nazi Kiev forces shelled the positions of the People's Republic of Lugansk 4 times over the past 24 hours, the LPR Defense Ministry said. The positions near the village of Kalinovka were twice subjected to shelling from the Luganskoye settlement. Fire was opened from infantry fighting vehicles, anti-tank and automatic grenade launchers, mortars of 82 caliber and heavy machine gun fire. LPR positions were also shelled by Ukrainian forces near the settlements of Lagvinova and Krasny Liman. No injuries or damages were reported. The Donetsk and Lugansk Republic said that the Nazi Ukrainian forces violated ceasefire regime 120 times and shelled DPR and LPR territory more than 320 times since December 23rd. The past 24 hours has been a horror. War crimes, atrocities committed by the Poroshenko regime. Guru, listen to this. Turkey wants war, but not against ISIS, but against Mother Russia. Having apparently gotten Saudi Arabia on board with the idea, Nazi Turkey is now seeking broader international support for the idea of ground invasion into northern Syria, arguing that it's necessary to stop the brutal Russians and to beat back the Kurds from the border. Interesting, when Saudis were talking up invading last week, it was couched as a way to fight ISIS. Turkey's own talk of a ground offensive, which fascist President Erdogan insists is the only way to stop the war, is being presented wholly as about fighting the Kurds and keeping them from taking territory from ISIS. Though Erdogan insists the Saudis and some unnamed EU nations are on board, it's not clear to what extent that's the case, as the Saudis and the Russians are in the midst of a key economic efforts and probably don't want to suddenly be at war with one another. Turkey's government, by contrast, seems to be itching for a war with Russia. Erdogan insists that Russia is plotting to install the Kurds along the Syrian-Turkish border, displacing ISIS and other Islamist rebels. While Russia has backed the Kurdish YPG to some extent, the group is also heavily backed by the US, much to Turkey's consternation. Andre, listen to this. Turkish junta fighter jets violate Greek airspace 22 times in 24 hours. Turkish junta fighter jets repeatedly intruded Greek airspace within a short time frame, Athens said. Though no live rounds were exchanged, Greek warplanes were deployed to intercept the Turkish jets, leading to a tense aerial encounter. Ankara's fleet, comprising 6 warplanes and a Navy transport plane, have been cruising the skies above Greece's eastern and central Aegean island, state-run Athens news agency said. No less than 22 times the Turkish fighters are said to have entered Greek sovereign airspace. 2 of the 6 Turkish warplanes were armed. A Greek army staff was quoted as saying that 2 virtual dogfights took place between Turkish and Greek aircraft. The brief altercation has come when NATO is planning to deploy naval patrols in the waters of Aegean Sea to check increasing human smuggling and migrant trafficking. The waters separating both countries have been a vital route for refugees and eventually human traffickers as well. This is also not the first time the Turkish jets have flown into Greek territories, resulting in tense confrontations. While Greece recognizes 10 miles of airspace around an archipelago located in Turkish west coast, Ankara deems only 6 miles. Most of the aerial encounters happen only in the 4-mile radius that is claimed by both. Both Greece and Turkey, despite being part of the NATO bloc, have frequently engaged in territorial disputes. Guru, sad, deadly news. As people were lining up to buy bread, U.S. airstrikes kills 15 in Syria. An early dawn U.S. air raid against the Syrian city of Shadadi ended with airstrikes hitting the city's bakery and killing 15 civilians who were lining up outside to buy bread just before the bakery opened, according to the Syrian Observatory for Human Rights. It was unclear why the bakery was attacked, and the U.S. isn't commenting yet, though historically when the U.S. attacks ISIS-held towns, they focus on places with a lot of people, assuming their command structures. In this case, it was purely civilian target. Shadadi is considered a strategically important city for ISIS and is along Iraq-Syria border and is used as a logistics hub for ISIS forces operating between the two fronts. There were reportedly strikes around the outskirts of Shadadi, but the only casualties reported were the civilians at the bakery. This is the latest in the growing number of civilian deaths and attacks on ISIS-held towns as U.S.-led coalition pick up their war in northern Syria. Though the U.S. regularly faults Russia over the civilians killed in strikes, they rarely touch on the substantial civilian tolls of their own strikes. U.S. Blackwater, who have killed hundreds of civilians, have now abandoned Yemen. The U.S.-based Blackwater Group has reportedly abandoned the Taiz front in western Yemen after suffering heavy casualties over the last 2 months while fighting alongside the Saudi-led coalition forces and the Hadi loyalists. Local activists have reported this news after they intercepted a communication between Blackwater officers and members of the Saudi-led coalition in the coastal province of Taiz. In a matter of 2 months, the Blackwater Group has lost well over 100 casualties at the volatile Taiz front, including operatives from a dozen countries around the world. Most of the Blackwater operatives killed in Yemen were believed to be from Colombia and Argentina. However, there were also casualties from the United States, Australia, and France. Blackwater Group's withdrawal from the Taiz government comes just 4 days after the Houthis and the Yemeni Army 48th Brigade of the Republican Guard seized Jabal al-Shabaka. Andre, some good news for you. A petition demanding the trial of U.S. President Barack Obama has been signed so far by 8,500 Americans. 8,500 Americans have so far signed a petition on the official website of the White House claiming that Barack Obama, accused of committing war crimes, be brought to justice. The current U.S. president remains responsible for the aggression against Libya, support for terrorist groups linked to Al-Qaeda in Syria, the non-closure of Guantanamo prison, and collection of data of American citizens, reads the petition. We demand that Obama be brought before the ICC for committing war crimes. Obama has not only committed war crimes against American citizens, but it is behind the crimes committed on the world stage, said the petitioners. If this petition is signed by 100,000 people by March 9th, it should be examined. Iran-Turkey showdown in Syria. Turkey has called on the U.S. and other members of international coalition in Syria to join in a ground offensive and stop this war. Speaking amid speculation that Turkey was preparing troops to enter Syria from the north over the weekend, Ankara said it refused to take action on its own, but an official briefing reporters in Istanbul said, "We want a ground operation," adding that if there is a consensus, Turkey will take part. A senior Iranian Air Force commander says Iran is prepared to defend Syria's airspace if Damascus calls for it. Brigadier General Farzad Ismaili, the commander of the Iranians' Qatam al-Atiyah Air Defense Base, made the remarks during an interview with the Tasnim news agency on Sunday after praising the government and people of Arab country for their 5-year battle against foreign-backed Takfiri terrorism. He stressed that any military presence in Syria without the approval of Damascus would end in nothing but defeat. Viva Iran. The day of the shining star, 74th birthday of our great leader Kim Jong-il. North Koreans have gathered on Mansu Hill to bow to the bronze statues of late Kim Il-sung and Kim Jong-il. This ritual is part of the celebration of Kim Jong-il's birthday, the Day of the Shining Star. On February 16th, North Koreans will mark the 74th birthday anniversary of Kim Jong-il. The son of the great leader died on December 2011 at the age of 69. North Korea has opened an exhibition of Kim Jong-ilia, a flower named after the country's late leader Kim Jong-il, at Pyongyang's Kim Il-sung-ginya and Kim Jong-ilia exhibition hall to celebrate the 74th anniversary of Kim's birth. More than 30,000 Kim Jong-il begonias were displayed at the exhibition Tuesday to commemorate Kim Jong-il's birthday, known as the Day of the Shining Star. The celebration of Kim's birthday is a revered national holiday. The late leader died of an apparent heart attack December 2011 after ruling North Korea for 17 years. Respects were also paid to Kim Il-sung, the country's previous leader of 46 years, who died in 1994 and for whom the exhibition hall is partly named. Happy birthday, Viva DPRK. Alright folks, everybody be safe, stay on alert. As I stress, stay on alert. Have a great day. See you all on Friday. Bye-bye folks.